I was asked by a non-Muslim why it is I never show anything disparaging about Muslims. I made a promise to this person that I would try to find the most offensive thing out there about Muslims that I could. I love America. I'm grateful to be here. I do not bash America. There's a lot of things that America is not paying attention to that I think we should pay attention to that we're doing in some areas. I started watching these videos and they're frightening. Oh my God, oh, this is what Muslims think. Oh, this is what Muslims do. These guys in Hamas, and they're breaking these guys' legs, and they're torturing people. There was this one where this Taliban guys blew up this clinic where there were a bunch of foreign doctors there helping other Muslims, and they killed the doctors, and all the doctors, because of what these guys did, all these doctors packed up and left, and all the Muslims there who they were helping now have no medical care. Now, are these Muslim issues or are these human issues? Because that one incident, these guys went and killed doctors that were helping Muslims. How Islamic is that? I guess Hamas is a mixed bag because they were voted in, but I see a lot of people on a lot of different websites saying that these guys are tyrants, they're brutal. You hear bad things about the Taliban, all these. You say hi. Hi. What you got there? Oh, what is that?
Oh, no. No.
Oh, is that measuring? Oh, it's booties. Are these new shoes in a box?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got his old shoes. Here's your old shoes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If I look at it through the lens of a shared humanity, how can we explain these situations, these horrible things that are going on in the world? Now, the stuff with Hamas and Fatah, I mean, if I could create a parallel between something that Americans could relate to, you know, back in the 60s, we had our former slaves in America, the blacks, wanted their freedom. And there were race riots going on. Martin Luther King, a bunch of different black leaders came up, Malcolm X. Martin Luther King was a very peaceful guy and had a peaceful resistance mentality. But then there were militant groups. You can't just assume that any oppressed group is all going to get united. When you're downtrodden and worn down and you're seeking a revolution, there are going to be different factions. There always seems to be different factions. You're probably less likely to get killed by your enemy than by a faction within your group. One of the complaints I heard on the videos, look at these Muslims. Why would we even care for the Muslims when they don't even care for themselves? Muslims are killing each other left and right. It says a lot about their character. But the fact is, oppressed groups have a tendency to torture each other within their group. Here in America, there's an illusion that if a white woman's attacked, it's usually by a black man. Whites are most likely attacked and or killed by whites. Blacks are most likely attacked or killed by blacks. Mexicans are most likely attacked or killed by Mexicans. There'll be like an Asian family living in a house in our hometown. There aren't that many Asians here. And there'll be a home invasion. Some group will sneak in and invade their home with guns and take them hostage. It'll invariably be an Asian gang that breaks into another Asian family's house. There's millions of houses all over, but they select Asian houses, Asian families to go after because they're Asian. To abuse, we seek out our own people. We got to consider, when we see horrible things happening in Iraq, we create a war, we create a vacuum, and in that vacuum, lawlessness occurs. And then anything goes. Russia and Afghanistan, now us in Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of these regions, if you start looking at each particular issue of horrible things that Muslims are doing, they're not doing this in a vacuum. And I'm not saying we're making it happen. I'm saying that there are other players in all of these situations. And we have to consider, like, say, the Palestinians, for example. They're in a pressure cooker, garbage can, trash compactor. Some Muslims are saying, you know what, the Israelis treat us nicer than Hamas does. There's 2 prisoners in a cell, and then there is the guard, the prison guard. An alliance between a prisoner and the guard is probably just as likely as an alliance between 2 prisoners, because the guard controls the resources that these guys get. So they're more likely to squabble over resources because he is the sole source of resources. And he has all the power. So there's a lot of infighting between these guys. So when we see these guys fighting each other, we shouldn't hate them. We should understand that they are under the thumb, the yoke of oppression of this guy. Let's not start celebrating how great this guy is, because these two guys are fighting because they're in prison together and they're running low on resources. And they're feuding to see who's going to be on top. Anytime you see anything happening in a video where there's Muslims doing bad things, consider how horrible our Native Americans were. We demonized our Native Americans. We killed them. We put them in reservations. They were savages. They weren't humans like we were. Before European discovery and settlement, there were perhaps 3 million Indians in present-day USA. They had distinct ranges. Each group adapted to their own environments, had cultures, economics, beliefs, and customs. In come the Europeans. First, the European conquerors were the Spanish in 1598 and made slaves of the people there. Okay, the Europeans brought disease that wiped out whole Indian populations. Overhunting caused the extermination of fur-bearing animals from region to region, and trade with Indians eventually bred dependence. So the Indians became dependent upon European goods, iron tools, and weapons, which were clearly superior to the implements of the Indians. It was inevitable that the three European powers would fight over ultimate control of the territory, and between 1689 and 1763 they were fighting amongst themselves. It was the Indians, however, who were most affected by these wars. Indians had turned against each other to aid the foreign allies. Some troops were wiped out by other Indian tribes. At the end of these wars, many of the tribes east of the Mississippi were destroyed. The end result was that Indian land was confiscated by Europeans. Eventually, those tribes that had fought with and for the victor found their lands taken over by whites as European immigration to the New World increased. In 1776, when the colonies rebelled, the Indians were again divided and weakened. In 1828, Andrew Jackson, an avowed Indian hater, was elected president. He was of the opinion that the tribes east of the Mississippi should be moved by force, if necessary, west of the Mississippi. Jackson's policy had a great effect on the 5 civilized tribes. These tribes were living peacefully with their non-Indian neighbors and had embraced the European social, educational, and political systems. In 1830, when President Jackson's Indian Removal Act became law, the tribes were removed one by one. Lands which had been promised to the Indians in perpetuity was gradually taken away, and the Indians were herded onto reservations. When Indian land was not given freely, it was taken by deceit or force. And sometimes, whole populations were wiped out in the process. In 1880, in California, the Indian population fell from an estimated pre-European level of 350,000 to 20,000. And we criticized them for having bad teeth. And their kids are still uneducated today. They don't eat well. They were kings in this land. Next time you see a video of a Muslim doing something shabby, pull yourself back and say, okay, where is he? And what's the circumstances around his life? How did he come to be there being so shabby? Because he is you, and he is me. That's the way it is. We're humanity. This is humanity. We're in this together.
Play on America!